Hey everyone, I appreciate that all of you are asking me for my view regarding the Oakland Raiders in Oakland. And Ray Ortiz here on Twitter asked in huge letters, you said you know Libby personally, my god sister, and you may not be able to say everything. You might know, but is there any hope Raiders stay? The answer is yes. And I'm happy to repeat what I've said before. First of all, the NFL has understood that for some time the San Francisco Bay Area is one of its richest markets for media revenue. When I tried to bring the Super Bowl to Oakland from 1999 to 2001, we lost to Jacksonville by 8 NFL owner votes. In my research, and I use this in my presentation, the San Francisco Bay Area was number 3 among NFL regions in terms of what's called advertiser cost per ratings point. What does that mean? That means, very simple language, the amount of money it costs to put a commercial on. I don't mean for the television stations to produce the commercial, that's part of it, but for you to pay for it. That's the big part of it. That means that if an NFL game is played in Oakland, as opposed to, say, Jacksonville, or if you like, Las Vegas or San Antonio, the cost to buy airtime for a commercial in the Bay Area market is much greater. And I say much greater, implying that the rates are different. They are at different times. For example, for Monday Night Football, for the Denver Broncos Oakland Raiders game, it's going to be even higher than if it were a regular season game on a Sunday. You understand? So that is a compelling, actually the most compelling reason for the National Football League to want not just one, but two teams here. Think about it. When the 49ers are out of town, the Raiders can be in town. So you're still capturing revenue even though one team is gone. And of course, it's vice versa. And then, of course, there are those times when both teams are in town. The Raiders play on Sunday night, the 49ers Monday night, or if you like, the 49ers on Thursday night, the Raiders on Sunday. You get the combinations because basically there's 3 nights that you can play right now. Sunday, Monday, and then Thursday. Okay, sometimes Saturday if it's a playoff situation. But the bottom line is the Bay Area and its population size provides that wealth of opportunity of revenue for the National Football League. Something else too. Of the top 6 metropolitan areas among NFL cities, the San Francisco Bay Area is the only one of 2. The only one of 2. I repeat, the only one of 2 that have a growing number of television sets. Why is that important? Because of where we are in terms of technological change and how it's impacting television and our viewing habits. Let me explain. You're watching me on perhaps an iPhone. You may be watching me on a desktop. But in the past, we watched everything on the television set. Obviously, things have changed a great deal. I am producing this vlog on an iPhone 4G. For, say, 4 years ago, 5 years ago, I was using a flip video camera. Prior to that, I was using a heavier Panasonic or Sony camcorder. Everything has become miniaturized, but toward the objective of personal entertainment. That is, your ability not just to consume it, that thing that you want to watch, but also to produce it quickly and distribute it rapidly. All that's having an impact on television as a whole. And so what's going on when you take that dynamic and combine it with the long-term 30-year loss in manufacturing jobs in the United States to places like Japan, Korea, Taiwan, what we call the International Division of Labor. You say, what is the International Division of Labor, Zenny? That means that around the world, labor that's required to build one product is in different countries. The best example is the airframe of the Boeing 787 Dreamliner. that is produced in 96 different countries. That wasn't true for the first 747. The first 747, about 20. But the primary producer of parts was the United States by far. Today, that's not the case at all. That means that that dollar cost to make that airplane is distributed around the world. What does that mean? It means that communities that in the past would fight to get a place to, or fight to get a contract for an airplane, now see maybe a part of that contract. They're not going to see the whole, because you might have a wing configuration that's made in Japan, wheels that are produced in Italy, and so on. That's the major dynamic. You would say, okay, how does that impact what we're talking about here? Very simple. Because there are fewer jobs making things here, and the jobs are distributed around the world, excuse me, to areas where the cost of living is cheaper, in some cases much cheaper, and the wage levels are dramatically less, like Mexico, for example, it means that here you can pay a lower wage, right? That means that those persons taking those jobs make less than their counterparts 30 years ago or 15 years ago, or even 10 years ago. And that means that since costs to buy, for example, television sets and other items have not reduced with this dynamic, there's some, and it also, and of course cable bills haven't either, it means there are a number of people who are doing one thing: cutting the cord. You would say that's a long-winded explanation of why we cut cords, but I feel, because of my background in urban planning and system dynamics, that it's important for you to understand the forces around us that are creating this situation and impacting even this conversation regarding the Oakland Raiders and stadiums and affordability and how much money the NFL makes. Because of the dynamic I described to you, all right, it's more incumbent on the league to keep as much money from television revenue coming in as possible. So because of that, the dynamic I explained to you, it's not logical for the league to simply try to move to Las Vegas because of some image that you believe perhaps Las Vegas is tied to. The simple fact of the matter is that Las Vegas is a much smaller metropolitan area than the Bay Area and much less powerful economically. Again, it's a much smaller area than the San Francisco Bay Area, and it's much less powerful economically. Remember, the world's largest company operates in the San Francisco Bay Area in Cupertino. That's Apple. Remember, Facebook, which you're on, is in Mountain View. YouTube is in San Bruno. Netflix, at one point, was in San Francisco. I can go on and on and on with examples. PayPal, Mountain View. You see what I'm getting at? The Bay Area has become the Detroit of the 21st century. And so within this context, to take a team out of it is complete lunacy. Complete lunacy. So the NFL realizes this, and that is why the National Football League asked Oakland Mayor Libby Schaaf to give a market-oriented presentation last November. When I met with Libby, and I can now talk about this, it was a private meeting I talked about with no one, but I can at least talk a little bit about it now because, well, it's a year old about. But Libby brought me in basically for advice. And I told her, and I wrote out a 2-page outline or description of what she should say, focused on stadium building capacity. But the NFL didn't care about that. You understand what I'm saying? The National Football League did not care where Oakland was in building its stadium. What the NFL cared about was the market. The market. Again, the market. Because it knows it can find people and arrange for them to build a stadium within that market. They just want the owners to see how beautiful, from an economic standpoint, the San Francisco Bay Area market is. Las Vegas may have a few billionaires. The Bay Area has a lot of them. Tom Steyer, Larry Ellison, Sergey Brin of Google, Mark Zuckerberg. You know, you just ticking them off. Boom, 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 boom. You want to leave that? I mean, if you seriously want to leave that, no. No one does. And that's why a lot of owners are asking why Oakland Raiders owner Mark Davis cannot structure a business that is thriving and viable in the area. It's a really great question. It is a really great question. And it should be a question of concern among Raiders fans. You have to remember something here. The simple fact of the matter is that you as a fan have a stake in this too. And you have a right to ask questions, even of the team owner. Don't waste that right. Now, coming back to the question that Mr. Ortiz asked me, because of this, the NFL has worked with the city of Oakland and the county of Alameda for the past year in developing a stadium plan. Rhino Lot came in the middle. Now, something else you have to remember, that the league is interested in not so much seeing where Oakland is, but getting Oakland to a particular point as quickly as possible. What it wants to do is build up Oakland so that the other owners can say, hey, you know what? They've got a stadium program. They're ready to go, and they can do it. Yes, public money has been a problem here because going all the way back to Proposition 13 in 1998, because of the cost of living in California, people have not wanted to pay a lot of taxes for anything. That's been an ongoing issue here. It's also true around the country. And it's also impacted by the same urban economic dynamics and labor economic dynamics I talked about earlier in this video, okay? The same ones. And don't think Las Vegas is immune. It's not. Las Vegas has an enormous wage problem. And so basically, Mark Davis is asking the NFL to think about going to an area where about roughly almost half of the game day ticket base would be tourists. That's so iffy, it's crazy. I mean, just roll that around in your mind a couple 100,000 times. Like, you only need to do it once, really, okay? So, I've laid out the basic reasons why the NFL wants the Raiders to stay here. And think about this, too. If that were the case, that the NFL wanted the Raiders out of here, Carson would have happened a long time ago. I remember being on Good Morning San Diego, and I said to them then, last year, the Raiders aren't going anywhere, and one of the anchors said, oh, that's the first time we've heard that. Well, they didn't go anywhere. Same thing this time. Both Carson and Vegas had their financing, okay? So don't think that Vegas was ahead of Carson because of that subsidy amount. No. Don't make that mistake, okay?